I'm going to tell you a story. And this is a story about family, brotherhood, treachery, deceit, and forgiveness. And this story begins with Jacob. And if you remember, Jacob is the son of Isaac, who is the son of Abraham. And Jacob had 12 sons, and they all lived in the land of Canaan. And his favorite son was Joseph. And because of this, Joseph's brothers hated him. They hated him because he was the most favored and most loved of all of them. In fact, they hated Joseph because of his dreams also. And Joseph would dream these dreams sent to him from God. And in one of them, he gathered his brothers and he said, "Brothers, I had a dream that I had a bundle of wheat standing upright and strong. And all of you had all of your bundles circled and bowing around mine." And Joseph's brothers responded, saying, "Are you really going to make yourself king over us or impose your rule over us?" So anyway, Jacob, their father, asked them all to go in the land to tend his flock. And while they were there, the brothers huddled together while Joseph was in the distance, and they were plotting to kill Joseph because they hated him so much. But one of them intervened and said, "No, let's not kill Joseph, but let's bring him out into the desert and throw him into a pit." And they agreed. They tore off Joseph's tunic and put him into the pit. And meanwhile, a caravan came, picked Joseph up, brought him all the way to the land of Egypt, and sold him into slavery. And his brothers all looked at one another and said, "What are we to tell father? What lie can we make up as to what happened with Joseph?" So they had the idea to slaughter a goat and to dip Joseph's tunic into that goat's blood and show it to their father and say, "Joseph was devoured by a wild beast." And Jacob recognized it. Their father recognized the cloak and exclaimed, "My son's tunic! A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces." Then Jacob rent his clothes, put sackcloth on his loins, and mourned his son for many days. Meanwhile, back in Egypt, God was with Joseph. And he elevated Joseph into a pretty high position where he was a personal attendant for a wealthy master. And this master trusted Joseph with everything. In fact, when he left his house, he told Joseph, "I trust you with my property, with my household. Take care of it." And while the master was gone, the master's wife came on to Joseph and she said, "I want you to kiss me, Joseph." And Joseph said, "No, I will not." And because of this, she was very offended and angry. And when her husband came, she said, "Joseph tried to kiss me." And the master was so outraged because he trusted Joseph so much that he sent him to prison. But God was still with him. And in prison, Joseph had some companions who would also have these dreams, and Joseph would interpret them. And one of his companions said, "What does my dream mean?" And Joseph answered, "This dream of yours means that you will be released from this prison in 3 days. But remember, when you leave, remember me." And his companion, in fact, did. Because one day Pharaoh was having these dreams that no one could interpret. And the companion that was in the prison with Joseph said, "I know a man back in prison, and he knows how to interpret dreams. In fact, his name is Joseph." So Pharaoh called forth Joseph, and he said, "I have a dream where I have 7 healthy cows and 7 unhealthy cows, and the 7 unhealthy cows devour the healthy ones. What does this mean?" And Joseph said, "This dream means that you will have 7 years of abundance in this land, 7 years where crops and food will be growing everywhere. And then after 7 years of famine, where there will be no food growing. So my advice to you is in these 7 years of abundance to store as much food as you can. Fill up your barn houses with all of this food so that when the time of famine comes, you will be prepared." And Pharaoh was so pleased with Joseph's response, with Joseph's wisdom of interpreting his dream, that he elevated Joseph to a high position where he basically was able to control who entered Egypt and who left, who took food and who didn't. Meanwhile, back in Canaan, Jacob had sent his sons to go to the land of Egypt to get food because they too were experiencing famine during the 7 years of drought. But one of the brothers, Jacob, wanted to stay behind, who was Benjamin. So the 10 brothers went out to Egypt, and they came to Joseph's footsteps, But they didn't recognize Joseph. But Joseph, in fact, did recognize his brothers. And the scriptures go on to say, he recognized them as soon as he saw them. But he spoke sternly to them and said, "Where do you come from?" And they answered, "From the land of Canaan to procure food." But you see, Joseph wasn't going to let them off so easy. He had to test them to see if their hearts had actually changed. So he said, "Spies, you are all spies here." And they said, "No, we're not spies. We're 12 brothers. One of them is back home with her father and the other one is gone." And Joseph said, "See, you're lying to me. You must prove that you have this other brother and go back to your land and bring him back to me. And on top of that, I need you to leave one of your brothers here as prisoner." And he picked Simeon. And Simeon, one of the brothers, would stay as prisoner. But something remarkable about this is that in chapter 42, we see Joseph turns away from them and he weeps. He weeps at the sight of his brothers. He still has compassion and love for them after everything that they've done to him. They don't see that though. So they leave to go back home and they're worried because they're thinking, we have to tell Father that this man in Egypt thinks that we're lying to him. He has one of his sons prisoner and we have to ask him to allow him to take Benjamin with us. And Jacob was not happy. And he said, "Will you leave me childless? Go, take him if it's necessary." So they brought Benjamin back to Egypt. And when Joseph saw his brother Benjamin, again, he was overcome with affection, as we see in chapter 43. He was overcome by affection. How touching is that after everything that he's been through? But even though he wept for them, he wept for his brothers when they weren't looking, he still had to give them another test. So as they left, Joseph put a silver goblet in Benjamin's bag. And a little while later, he said, "One of my silver goblets is missing. Gentlemen, I will have to send my servants here to check your bags." And the brothers were kind of shocked, and they said, "Okay." And they found the silver goblet in Benjamin's bag. And Joseph said, "What is this? What are you doing? You're stealing my items?" So he said, "Because of this, Benjamin is going to have to stay here as prisoner." And Judah, one of the brothers, he was overcome, and he said, "I beg you, Lord, let your servant speak earnestly to my Lord. Do not become angry with your servant, for you are equal to that of Pharaoh. If then this boy is not with us when I go back to your servant my father, whose very life is bound up with his, he will die as soon as he sees the boy is missing." And at this, Joseph found it was time to reveal himself. Joseph could no longer control himself in the presence of all his attendants, so he cried out, "Have everyone withdraw from me. Let thus no one else was about when he made himself known to his brothers." But his sobs were so loud that the Egyptians heard him, and the news reached Pharaoh's palace. "I am Joseph," he said to his brothers. "Is my father still in good health?" But his brothers could give him no answer, so dumbfounded were they at him. So in the end, he forgives his brothers, and he brings them all back into the land. And he says, come live in this land, and you will have abundance of food." And Jacob is happy, and he gets ready quickly, and he leaves his house, and he sees, "I have to see my son before I die." So there's a joyful ending. There's forgiveness. And the same forgiveness that we see in this story of Joseph and his brothers, it's just a small glimpse of the forgiveness that God has for each and every single one of us, no matter how horrible we are. He asks us to repent, to change our hearts, and to come to him.